Hello, beautiful friends. Welcome to the 8th recap video. We're cruising along. I just finished up editing the 7th and posted that, so I am like churning these out, but it feels super good and I have so many ideas of things that I want to create for you, so I'm glad that we are trekking through these. I have notes for April through June of 2025, all of the things that I watched, listened to, read, did, saw, and I'm excited to talk about them with you. Of course, I have to give the obligatory speech. You can go and watch all the other recap videos in a playlist that I've made on my YouTube. Those date back all the way to like March of 2023. So there is a ton of stuff if you want to go see what I've been up to in the last 3 years. I know it's been a minute since I put out music and I've just kind of been in and out of my like posting phases. Yeah, this is kind of filling you in on everything that's been going on so you get that idea of how things have been moving before I actually give you things soon. So let's talk about April of 2025. I had freshly moved to Nashville. I moved at the end of March, and so April was my first month living here alone. I had sort of lived alone before. I spent some time on Cape Cod at my parents' place when they would only come out on the weekends, so it was just me and the dogs for like all winter. And so that was kind of my experience with like living alone, managing my work schedule by myself, taking care of the dogs, feeding myself, all those things. But this was different because it's my own city. I only had friends here. There's no family, anybody who like I really was relying on in like a adult sort of way. I was really just taking responsibility for myself, and that was definitely my biggest fear in moving, was the financial element, working and being able to pay for rent and food and budgeting and all that. And I'm really good at those things, but I think that's why I'm so nervous, because I do care about them. I am hyper aware about them. So most of April I spent working. I had a job nannying, and that was like 36 hours of my week, and that was great. But the agency that I started nannying for also provided babysitting jobs, just like one-off, whenever parents would need them. And so I was taking about 3 of those a week. So I was working like 50 hours a week, which was a lot, but it really, I think it helped me ease into it because it gave me that sense of financial security. And also, while I didn't really have a ton of things to do and I only had a couple of friends here, it kept me busy, gave me something to do while I got into the flow of things. I definitely am not doing that anymore, but I'm really glad I did it then. I think it helped me out and allowed me to feel more settled. I also started going to my church in Nashville. I go to Legacy. I was specifically looking for a church that did not mention marriage or sexuality in their doctrine, because it really matters to me that the church has open arms for everybody of any sexual orientation. That was something that I found within their doctrine. I can't speak to every individual member of the church, but something that I've been learning in the last year and a little before that is that I really can't find the perfect church. And even if it's not church, whatever group you're looking for, it's never going to be exactly to your specific beliefs. I try to look at it as a collection of people and deciding which collection of people I want to belong to. And for the majority of what I've seen at Legacy, it's been welcoming and loving and considerate. That's where I've landed. It hasn't been perfect, but it's been good. And I'm lucky that I knew I wanted to go there from right when I moved here. And it has been working out for me, so it's great. I went to one concert. I'd worked with Tori Hammerski on some of my PR for Open Book, and she manages a couple of artists who are awesome, and one of them is Chrysalis, and so I wanted to go to their show, and Tori was there too, and I had never met Tori in person. We had just like talked a bunch over email and everything, and so I wanted to go meet her and see Chrysalis, and that was a fun show, very small. It was at Dark Matter, which is a cool venue. I haven't been there since, but I would like to. They have vegan stuff there. So yeah, it was fun to see Tori, and we got to hang out and go to Velvet Taco, and that was good. I wrote 3 songs that month. The first song I wrote is called Collateral Damage, and that was about how I found some of my friends to start changing the things that they thought and believed from when I first met them, and was essentially saying like, I am glad that they didn't do things differently. I'm glad that their regrets for the past didn't come to fruition, because our relationship wouldn't have started. And it's okay for relationships to change and for people to grow, but had they been like that from the start, I don't think we would have met, if that makes any sense. So that's what collateral damage is about. It's like I would have been collateral damage if these things that you realize now were things that you realized then.
If you chosen everything you wish you did, you'd have broken our relationship, yeah. Would be collateral damage for preferences you make happen. Thank God for all your regrets, cause without them we've never met, yeah.
I also wrote the song Debris, which is kind of a song I wrote just about feeling lonely in a new city. It was kind of the idea of, yes, if a tree falls in a forest and no one hears it, it did in fact fall. But sometimes knowing that truth isn't enough validation. There's an emotional element missing without anybody to affirm that and to hear you and to understand you.
The leaves upon the ground they lie, they'll decompose, they'll fertilize a brand new tree, they'll give it life, and it'll grow after some time. But trees don't have a way to cry, can only tell if it's alive by counting rings after it's died.
And then I wrote the song Lockjaw, which I still really love. This is one of my favorites. One thing I learned, which is an anxiety response, is that I will bite my tongue, just like in my mouth with this. And I found out that when you do that enough, it can like make marks on your tongue. So I kind of wrote a song about that. Basically the idea that like I had no one to talk to and I felt weird in social gatherings because the friends I knew really took me under their wing. But it was like them who I really loved and knew, and then all of their friends that they had made, and I was just like trying to keep up. And so it's the idea of kind of feeling like I was fading into obscurity, and then eventually I was gonna get lockjaw and like not be able to join in, I suppose. So I don't know, it makes more sense if you listen to it. I really like that song.
My tongue feels foreign in my mouth, I don't know where to place it, cause it's something I can think about when I'm afraid to face this lesson I wish I could miss, that leaves my lips unkissed, as far as I can see, as far as I can see.
I was listening to a lot of indie rock when I moved at first. Maybe that's because I was hanging out with my friends who are in an indie rock band, and that's one of the things I have written down is Almost AM. I'm friends with all of them, and they put out their EP, Doing Nothing, Going Nowhere. I was listening to that a whole bunch. It was really fun. It was fun to celebrate them right when I moved here. It was very just exciting all the time. I also was listening to a bunch of The Rex, their EP, and then DJL put out his new album. It was not the deluxe, it was just the original. But I remember the first time I listened to that driving to my friend's house, and it's just really good. It's a good time. It's a good vibe. I have been listening to Potion so much in the last year. This is where the movies really start to ramp up because I had some time to just like sit and watch movies. And I also, anytime I hung out with my friends, we'd always watch a movie, and I would watch movies with my nanny kid. I guess that kind of started in May because I was testing the waters a little bit that first month, but I would watch a couple of movies with like other babysitting kids and stuff. So let's do it. Let's talk about it. I watched Nickel Boys with my friends. That was just a really beautifully done movie. I went into that completely blind, and that was a crazy one to go completely blind into. Really a masterclass. That was wonderful. I watched the TV show Adolescence, that limited series on Netflix. That one was really good too. The one-shot thing was so natural that I didn't even notice that that's what they were doing until the second episode. Pretty sad. I think the cinematography of it is the best part. Like, I don't know, I felt like the ethical stuff never fully got resolved. Like they were trying to make a point that didn't land, but the cinematography was awesome. I Care a Lot, the one with Rosamund Pike. I really like her. I think her acting can be hit or miss, but I think she just is so chic. So I watched that, and it was everything you would expect from like a Netflix kind of wine mom thriller. I watched the only Black Mirror episode I've ever watched, Common People. That was the one where the treatment for whatever disease she has starts to run ads in her body. And I love dystopian things, but I think it's sort of the bodily harm thing that really messed with me, because there's the part where her husband like starts doing OnlyFans but for creepy things instead of sexual things. He starts like ripping out his teeth, and that I really could not handle. I can't do that. I would be down to watch more, but I'm really just like spacing them out because I can't stomach a lot of that at once. I watched Am I Okay? The Dakota Johnson one, yet another example of someone who I'm not sure is a great actor, but is just very chic. I watched Burlesque for the first time. I was kind of surprised I hadn't seen that yet. It felt like Walmart Moulin Rouge. And then I watched Minions while I was babysitting once. Hot take, I'm not a big fan of the Despicable Me movies. Maybe that's not a hot take. Maybe I just am aware of a lot of people whose hot take is that they like those movies, but they're not really for me. I don't know. I'm a Disney person. I'm not a DreamWorks person, or Illumination, I guess is what that is. But hey, we got through April. I'm kind of speeding through these. I feel like I could have talked about these movies way longer, but go follow my Letterboxd. You can see all of the thoughts I've ever had on a movie there. My birthday is in May. My birthday is May 5th, and my birthday was on a Monday, which was very unfortunate that year. So none of my friends could hang out that day, but I still wanted to do something to celebrate. And I knew that like I didn't want to just wallow on my birthday living in a new city and everything. So I found this cocktail bar that doesn't have any labeling or anything. And on Monday nights they did jazz nights. And so I went there. It was like in an old steam factory thing, I don't know, but it's really cool in there. I got some cocktails, I listened to jazz, I felt very sophisticated and cool. And then my family and I did a big trip that was for my sister's birthday, my birthday, and Mother's Day, where we all spent some time in New York together. It's always New York, you know this. I saw 3 shows. We went specifically to see Glenn Ross because my whole family loves Succession and we wanted to go see Kieran Culkin in that. My dad and my sister also really like Bob Odenkirk. That was fun. Not exactly my kind of a play, but seeing Kieran Culkin and meeting him and everything was very fun. I wanted to see Floyd Collins, so we went and saw that. It was kind of the perfect situation because Lizzie McAlpine was my top artist that year before on Spotify. She was in it. And then it was written by Adam Guettel, who wrote my second favorite musical of all time, The Light in the Piazza, but it's my first favorite original musical. And then it was in my favorite theater, the Vivian Beaumont. What am I thinking? The Vivian Beaumont Theater at Lincoln Center. So that was good. I did low-key have a panic attack during it, not because of the musical, just because I was like, I'm going back to living alone and being in my head and everything, because I was taking a flight out like 2 hours after the show was over. Whenever my dad is paying for shows, I let him pick, which I think is just the courteous thing to do. So he chose Dead Outlaw, and that was a trip. Some of the music in that was really cool, but what was going on? It was like about this guy who was an outlaw and he died at like 30, and then it was about what they kept doing with his body, and they like kept using him in like fair attractions and like taxidermy presentations and all this crazy stuff. And it was a true story, is the crazy thing. Those were the shows we saw in New York. It was very fun to spend that time with my family. It was spring. We were all celebrating things. It was very good. I also had a little dinner party in my apartment. I had this whole 2025 bingo card thing that I made, and one of them was to host a dinner party. So I invited all my friends over. There were like 7 of us or 8 of us, and I cooked them all dinner. It was pretty shabby. I did not have the hang of it, but it was good to have my apartment see some people, have a little housewarming situation. It's funny to think back on that because I've grown so much closer to all of them, and it just was kind of awkward, but I am really glad that I've gotten so close with them. I went to 3 concerts because I was really getting into the Nashville vibe, I guess. I went to the Almost Damn concert at the East Room. They were wonderful. That was also the Wonderlands and Kelsey Blackstone, who I am friends with now. It was really fun to see them perform. They put on a great show. And then I went to Adam Melcher. I bought tickets for his show, his album release show, before I moved, and I was so excited about that. So that was fun. Hudson Ingram opened. It was at the Blue Room, which is such a cool venue. I went to this thing that they do in Centennial Park in the summer, where they do like outdoor concerts, and the Arcadian Wild was headlining one, and they're definitely not my favorite band, but they wrote and recorded my favorite song, which is Wonder Wonder. They didn't play it, but I still wanted to go and see it, and it was so fun. I went on a little solo date and set up my towel and just sat there and listened to music. It was so good. I wrote 2 songs that month. One song was called Bulldoze. I don't really know what the vibe of that was. I wrote it the day before my birthday. It was just a song about feeling weird about turning a new age.
And finding shit that I can cry about during the wait, like love requiring freight, like cravings to obey, like fun can only come from altered states.
And then I wrote a song, Stable, that I'm not gonna tell you about. You can hear some of it, but you don't get to know what that one's about. Although I think one thing I'm trying to learn is accepting the vulnerability of sharing my art with you more honestly, because that's like part of the job. And I like that idea, but I think I've been shying away from it for some reason. Maybe I'll be more honest with you soon. I don't know. Maybe I'm already being honest with you and I just have high standards for myself.
Baby, I'ma need you to be a little stable. When's the day you start to forget what you bring to the table? I need you to give me a why to stop, to try to idolize a life relied. Baby, I'ma need you to be a little stable.
I pretty much was only listening to the new Adam Melcher album that month. I really liked The Diary of Living, that song, because I love Bruno Major as well, so that kind of blew my mind. And then I had started this new playlist, Mia Mornings, which is a playlist that really is just catered to my own personal vibe taste. I make a lot of playlists that I would love for you to go listen to that have like very specific vibes, very well curated, and this one is just so me, where it's all the songs that I turn on in the morning that are like chill and make me feel relaxed, cool, help me see beauty in the morning, but still like aren't like slow jazz, you know? That started to show up in all my like top listened to songs, was just everything in that playlist because I was listening to it so much. I finished and read a ton of books in May. Whenever the kid that I nannied for would nap, I would read, and so I plowed through a ton. I finished Where the Waves Turn Back by Tyson Motsenbacher. I love his music, and he wrote a book about how he walked across the whole coast of California after his mom passed away, and it kind of helped him to just have a new experience with humanity and learn things about himself. So that was a really interesting and good read. Lots of really cool life lessons, and he just is a great author, great writer. I also finished The Devotional Upon Waking by Jackie Hill Perry. Jackie Hill Perry is someone I don't completely agree with because of my views on sexuality, but she still has some really amazing theological points, and something I try to pride myself on is being able to take everything with a grain of salt, and that's something it's a muscle I'm continually trying to refine. So I read it, and she really did have a lot of very incredible points in that devotional that got me thinking. So that was a really good read. I read Single Today by Ryan Weckenman. I had ordered a bunch of books about being single because I have been single my whole life, but I definitely want to be in a relationship all the time. And that's not a bad thing in and of itself, but once it hinders my ability to get things done and to be there for other people, that's a problem. And so I've had periods in my life where I have read more books like that. So this one was really cool because it was really rather new when I read it, and by like a pastor, I think, who is actually committed to being single his whole life. And so many of the books on singleness are like from married people who are like, this was my season of life, but it's not where they are now. And so it was cool to read something from someone who actually understood it. And then in one night, I read Job by Maxwell Friedrich. I have seen that play in person, but I was able to buy the play in February when I was in New York with Rachel. And it's my favorite play I've ever seen. It's so good and absolutely shocked me. I would love to experience that for the first time again. So if you can go and find a way to do that, even if it's just reading the play, I so recommend it. I had just gotten it back from my dad, actually, who read it, and then I was going to lend it to another friend, and so I wanted to read it real quick again, and it just is so good. I have taken so many notes in that. And then the last book I read that month was 7 Myths About Singleness by Sam Allberry, and that one I think was a little more of the same stuff you always hear about singleness. Then the last thing we need to talk about in May is all of the movies. I was watching so many between nannying, and then also I would go down to my apartment gym and just walk on the treadmill and watch a movie, which is something I should probably do more of now. Yes, on my birthday, I watched the Lego movie with my nanny kid. He was 2, so he was a little young for the Lego movie. That one was more for me. I rewatched The French Dispatch. That is my second favorite movie of all time. I just love the vibes. It's so good. We watched Monsters University. Great movie. We watched The Good Dinosaur, which is so sad. I know everybody said it's super sad, but I had never seen it, and it really is so sad. What were they doing? Amazing, amazing animation though, and really cool for low stimulation for my nanny kid. We watched Cars. He loved Cars. We watched Mickey, Donald, Goofy, The Three Musketeers. I'm telling you, there were some really deep cuts happening. Planes, Fire and Rescue, I did not care about. I watched Tetris by myself. That was about the creation of Tetris, and Taron Egerton played the main guy. I just really liked Taron Egerton, but the movie was mid. I watched Little Miss Sunshine at a movie night with my friends. I don't remember a lot about that, but I'm not a big fan of Steve Carell in serious roles. I like him in funny things, which I guess is counterintuitive when I say I don't like Despicable Me. So I don't really know what I like him in, I guess. But if I remember correctly, that was another This Is the Way Life Is movie. I watched The Beanie Bubble, which is very similar to Tetris. It was about the creation and controversy around Beanie Babies. I watched it for Sarah Snook. I watched The Secret Life of Pets with my nanny kid. We watched Boss Baby, and I hate that movie. I gave it another chance because I wasn't sure if I just forgot about it, but it's so annoying how many dirty jokes are in that movie. What kid or adult is enjoying that? Not me, that's for sure. But at least it's not storks. I hate storks. It might be my least favorite movie of all time. We watched Lilo and Stitch. Oh, that was the live action Lilo and Stitch, I believe, that came out. I got to see that with the kids that I babysat for in theaters, which is so fun. That was the first movie we ever saw together in theaters, and it can be challenging to take them to the movie theater, but I love movies so much, clearly, and I love them loving movies. My boss now has even said, you guys should watch more movies. And I'm like, yes, I love this. I watched The Gorge. Clearly I was having an Apple TV run, but that was awful. One of my friends was like, it's a really great, passive fun watch. Oh my gosh. I was like, as soon as the scene came on where they were doing Queen's Gambit and Whiplash across the gorge from each other, I was like, this is just trash. This is horrible. I can't take it. We watched Tarzan, and that music really does hit. I've never been a major Tarzan apologist, but I know people who have, and it really is so good. Zootopia we watched. I watched The Marvels while I was at my nanny family's house while the kid was napping, and that movie was crazy. I felt so bad because his dad came in the room, and I can only imagine what he thought I was watching. Marvel is going downhill, you guys, but I'm watching Agatha All Along right now, and it's trash, but it's fun, so if you can go in it with that mindset, it's better. And then my nanny kid and I watched Mulan. So that was all the movies in May. That was 18 movies, but just you wait until we get to December of 2025. I need to stop watching so many movies because I can't talk about all of them in one video. It's crazy. All right, finally, June of 2025. We are cruising along. I got to go to 2 of my friends' weddings at the beginning of June. I love going to weddings. It was really convenient, actually, because one was on a Thursday evening, and that was in Montana, and then the next one was in Indiana, I want to say, or Illinois, one of those states. And that was on a Saturday, so I just made one big trip. I went to my friend Caitlin's wedding in Montana, and I stayed with my friend Greta. She and I were roommates when I did YWAM in Montana in 2020, so it was fun to hang out with her. She is moving to Japan soon, so I'm really glad we got to have that quality time together. And then I flew over to Indiana and stayed with my friend Alana, who I also knew from DTS in 2020. And she and I road tripped 2 hours each way to this wedding in Indiana for my friend Grace, who I met at Moody when I did my 1 semester of college. She is the only friend that I made there. But she got married and she had a very beautiful wedding, and she was very kind to give me a +1 of anyone I wanted because I definitely didn't know anyone at her wedding. It was so gorgeous. And she and I bonded in Moody over Little Women, and we had the same music taste, and we loved classical literature, but also indie rock. So yeah, really fun to celebrate her on that trip and to hang out with Alana. I got to hang out with so many friends and celebrate so many friends. I also played this open mic with my friend Lane. She was going to a bunch of open mics. I met her at church, actually. It was crazy. I just was sitting next to her the first week I ever went, and she asked if I wanted to go get lunch, and I said no, but we can get coffee sometime. And so we got coffee, and then we've been super, super tight ever since. And she also does music. I really like her stuff. It's great. So we're tight, and she invited me to this open mic once, and I wasn't gonna play it, and then I played it, and that was the only time I played live in Nashville all year, but I was able to cross that off my bingo card. So thank you, Lane, for making me do that. And I also went to Cape Cod at the end of that month. My family invited me out for 4th of July, but the 4th of July on Cape Cod is disastrous. The traffic is crazy, and all the same things are happening except for maybe fireworks the week before. So I just went the week before, and that was really good. It was the first time I was seeing my dogs again after I moved, and just got to hang out with them and swim in the pool and eat vegan hot dogs. We had a good time. Other than that, I was just hanging out with friends and nannying and doing all the normal things. Still getting used to Nashville. And one thing that I was really adamant with myself about was that I didn't want to rush into trying to be successful in Nashville, because so many people don't make it because they are here for a year and they don't take off, and then they feel like they failed. And I really wanted to build a sustainable adult life here where I felt like I had patience with myself to succeed. So that's really what I was going for. I feel like I've done that. I feel established. I am working on music stuff now, but it feels good to not feel like I have some kind of arbitrary deadline to meet. I wrote 3 songs that month. One is about a book, one is about a movie. Are we surprised? The first song I wrote was Listening Forever To. That one was inspired by The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, which we'll talk about. But there's a scene in that book where these 2 longtime friends who had kind of a traumatic childhood together meet up and hang out one evening, and they both have partners, but neither of them are obsessed with their partners really, and they just are reminiscing on their whole lives, and they really would love to be together, but they both have this insane trauma, which allows them to be the only people who understand each other. But also, if they're both in this like emotional distress because of it, there's no one to pull them out. They both have this like deep debilitating sadness about it, and so it's just sort of the like they wish they could be together thing, and I wrote a song about that.
You never talk to me this way. I stopped myself from hoping that you would one day forget the groom, I'm not a bride. I'd give it all to sit beside you, listening forever to you cry.
I wrote a song called The Phoenician Scheme. That movie had just come out around that time, and I really wanted to go see it because I love Wes Anderson, but I didn't want to spend money on a movie ticket. And movie tickets are expensive, so I was within my right. But I wrote this song about how I wished a boy would take me to go see The Phoenician Scheme, and we could just hold each other's hands and not watch the movie the whole time. I did end up getting to see The Phoenician Scheme. I did pay for a movie ticket. I went with Rachel. It was a good movie. Not as good as The French Dispatch, but...
No, I don't know what this movie's about. I hope that I never find out. No, you cannot pay attention amidst the invention of taking the coveted route. This can't be real, it's not what it seems. Make you a deal, round 2 of the Phoenician Scheme.
And I wrote this song with Every Day that was about life feeling weird. I sat down to write a song right after I made my coffee, and then my coffee was super cold, and I was like, hey, this is how life feels. Like, why did it cool down so fast? Why are all the good things that I feel excited about not lasting in their celebration, I suppose? I don't know if I love how it's written, but was how I felt at the time. And I love like just expressing myself in a moment in time and being true to that.
You know the coffee is growing cold. You know the fruit is growing mold. With every day I'm growing old.
Since I was talking about The Goldfinch, we should talk about books. I did finish The Goldfinch finally. I'd started reading that previous August, so it took me a hot second, but that book is chunky. And it accompanied me through some really cool times because I started reading it in New York, where Theo was from, and then there are scenes in Amsterdam where I had just been. It really is such a character study, and I definitely think I liked The Secret History more, but there was something cool about following this dude through his whole life, and like you feel like you know him at the end of the book, and like it's hard to kind of leave him after that. Now that I think about it, it's really interesting because he didn't have people to go through his whole life with him. And so the reader is the one who did it, and they are feeling this sense of departure and longing for more from him when nobody in his life did, which actually is really cool that Tart did that. I'm realizing this now. I love talking about things. But yes, I read that, and then I read Loveology by John Mark Comer. That was another one of my singleness things. I did not like that one. It was kind of archaic. I really like Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by him, but his Loveology stuff was not so much for me. The music I was listening to, unfortunately, what really populated my most listened to songs were things I was listening to with my nanny kid. I was playing like Disney songs for him all the time, and by the end I was getting him to listen to like Elton John, Michael Jackson, Billy Joel. He knew all that stuff, so thank God for that. But in June it was Life is a Highway, Try Everything, Fixer Upper in summer. But he loved Shiny from Moana, and I can still sing every word of that song. It is a banger, but not so much when you listen to it as much as I've listened to it. And then Strange Things from Toy Story. We watched Toy Story together, and I'd forgotten there were so many bangers. I thought it was just You've Got a Friend in Me. And I genuinely love that song, Strange Things. It now represents a moment in time for me, but it is still a great song. Go listen to some Randy Newman if you haven't in a minute. It is awesome. Songs I actually wanted to listen to. I kind of just had 3 songs that I was really listening to a ton. It was Sunshine and Apathy by Sophia James. I mentioned Sophia James in the last video. I was really into her, but she put out kind of more of a rock situation thing that was really good. Dodie put out her first single of her new project, I'm Fine, and that ended up being my #1 most listened to song in 2025. Really cool orchestration on that. And then Threat by Kevin Atwater. I was listening to his album because my good friend Aubrey was opening for him on tour, and I wanted to listen to his stuff. And I can't really listen to his stuff a ton because it is super depressing, but he writes so honestly, and I admire that a ton. I just like, for my own mental health, I can't listen to it all the time, but it's so hard because I love his voice and I love his melodies, so every once in a while it'll be a little sad treat for me. All right, and then we just gotta get through these movies. I feel like I'm blowing through this, but it's still gonna be kind of a decently long video. I watched Mickey 17 by myself. It definitely was interesting. I did not like Robert Pattinson's accent. There was a lot happening there. I think my favorite part was the Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette just being absolutely unhinged. I watched The Princess and the Frog with my nanny kid. We watched Cars 3. For some reason, we skipped the best Cars movie, but I think it's because we kept starting it and never finishing it. I watched Captain America Brave New World. Gotta keep up on your Marvel, of course. That was on a plane, which I feel befits the current state of Marvel. I watched Turning Red with him, and that one has super cute animation. I love that. We watched Tangled, of course. Tangled is so good. If you don't like Tangled, you have a problem. We watched Luca. I love Luca as well. I have been to the city that it's based on, Cinque Terre, and I just absolutely fell in love with it when I was there, so really great movie. Toy Story, of course. Very horrible animation. I became kind of an animation connoisseur watching all these movies with him because I was comparing all the animation. It is a product of its time, but I'm really happy for the progress we've made on animation. I watched Juror Number 2 by myself. I do not remember a ton about that. My family is so into like the courtroom drama things, and I guess I just turned that on because that's what I was in the mood for, but like I can only get into it when my family's into it. It's not for me. Unless it's Jury Duty. I love Jury Duty. We watched The Bee Movie, which really holds up. That has weird animation too, but man, that movie is iconic. Trolls. I hadn't seen it in years, so it was fine. I didn't mind it. Sing actually is a banger. I love Sing. So many great actors in that, and animation and the story, and it's just so good. And then similarly, 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think I was in the mood to watch something that was heavily revered, and I didn't totally know what I was getting myself into, but I knew it was going to be one of those space movies, and I hated it. Nothing happens in that movie. The only reason you might like that movie is like for it being a product of its time, where you're like, wow, this was innovative when it came out, but I don't really care about that. It doesn't stand the test of time, and there are lots of old movies that do. The Cross? I do not know what that is. The Croods! Okay, problem solved. The Croods. I did not like that movie either. That's either DreamWorks or Illumination, which I don't like. I made Lane watch Little Women. She had never seen it, so that was a joy. I love that movie. I watched Hotel Transylvania with my nanny kid, which was kind of a vibe, which I think might be DreamWorks or Illumination, so maybe I don't hate all of them. We watched Luck, the Apple TV animated movie. I love Even No Blazada, but man, that movie was hard to get through. It felt like a movie made for adults for kids. Like, an adult would be like, wow, my kid really needs to watch this, when your kid does not need to watch this. I watched Conclave. Unfortunately, that was on a plane, but great movie. And the reason I watched it was so I could watch that table read where they had all the comedians reading it, and I still haven't watched that, so I really need to. And then my last movie was The Shape of Water. I have feelings about that movie. I do not like Guillermo del Toro, I have discovered, but that was my first Guillermo del Toro, I think. You know, it seemed like an interesting concept, and my favorite composer, Alexander Desplat, composed the music for that movie. So I thought it would be great, and the opening credits, score is just gorgeous, but then the whole movie is so weird. So weird. You can't say that it's, a step forward for, deaf people, because it gives them such a bad rap where she's in love with a water monster, and maybe what they're trying to say is the government is taking advantage of these creatures because we think that we are above them, but why would you make it something that is legitimately gross? Maybe, I guess, to see if we'll actually empathize with it, even if it's not cute, but that doesn't mean there needs to be a sexual relationship with it. Guys, I don't know, I guess maybe it's just the fact that they were both outcasts and they wanted to be together, but again, I think there's a different way to show that. I don't like that movie. I'm sorry, it's not for me. We made it. I just talked through so many things so fast, but those were the next 3 months. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what else you want to hear. I am so excited to finish these up and get you some more things. We have 3 more to do, right? Depending on how fast I do them. I hope you're doing so well. I am doing some rebranding. I hope you are down with it. I'm going to talk to you about that in the January through March of 2026 video, so you got to hold off for a little bit, but I will have a long rant on that for you. I'm still figuring some of those things out myself, but I love you. I hope you're doing so good. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.